Week 2 lecture, Accessing Information, the Information Explosion. Every day the amount of information you are exposed to increases. The main reason for this is the Internet. Your access to information has increased, while the overall cost for computer technology and data storage has steadily decreased. As this information continues to grow, it becomes more difficult to manage. For example, if you put the topic marriage into Google, the amount of results you will get numbers more than 400 million. In Yahoo, that number is 132 million. And for Bing, the latest search engine that claims to control information overload, the number of responses is 143 million. Imagine if you wanted to do a research paper on marriage. How would you manage the information overload you would get from the top 3 search engines? How would you weed out the reliable and useful from the unreliable? Primary versus secondary sources. What are the differences between primary and secondary sources? Perhaps you've heard these terms before and you didn't have a clear idea of what the differences are. According to the OWL at Purdue Writing Lab, primary research is any type of research that you go out and collect yourself. Examples include surveys, interviews, observations, and ethnographic research. Another example of primary research is a work created or written by the subject of your research. For example, if you were doing a research paper on William Shakespeare, any of his plays that he wrote would be considered primary research. Secondary sources evaluate and analyze primary sources. They are useful to use because they offer insight into your primary research and can further your thinking. For example, if you were doing research on depression, you might have conducted a survey or interview for first-hand accounts of people afflicted with depression. A secondary source would be a book about depression or an article that analyzed a recent study about depression. A good researcher knows how to effectively use primary and secondary sources to complement each other in a cohesive fashion. Information literacy. By learning how to manage the information overload you will often be subjected to when doing research and discerning between primary and secondary sources, you are becoming information literate. Information literacy means you have the ability to decide the amount and extent of information you will need. You are able to locate and evaluate that information for credibility and reliability. You will be able to use the information effectively. Learning to evaluate sources of information is a valuable skill. It is much like detective work. You need to decide where to start, where to look, what to look for, and what to use. You could become overwhelmed by too much information and could be tempted to accept whatever you find. Don't be tempted. If you learn how to effectively evaluate the information, it is a skill that will serve you throughout your education and your life. Searching databases. Library databases should be the first place you look when conducting research. Articles in the library databases are peer-reviewed and are considered to be among the most reliable and credible. What peer review means is that the information you find in the database articles is evaluated and reviewed by a group of professionals in the industry. For example, if the information was from Psychology Today, before publication, a group of psychology experts would review the article for its validity and correct information. When searching on both the Internet and library databases, there are tricks of the trade that will help you find exactly what you are looking for. These tricks are called Boolean logic. Using Boolean logic to perform research isn't as complicated as it sounds. In fact, you could already be doing it. Boolean logic is just the term used to describe certain words and symbols that can be used to combine search terms in many search engines and library databases. It's not rocket science, but it sure sounds fancy. The use of and, or, and not can refine your search results. There are also wildcard symbols, the asterisk and the question mark, that allow you to put only a partial search term in and still yield relevant results. For example, imagine you are doing research on Portland, Oregon. If you put Portland into the search engine or database, you will receive results on several different Portlands in the United States. If you put in just Oregon, you might receive results about Portland, but about the state in its entirety. However, if you put Portland and Oregon in the search engine or database, you would receive only those results that had both Portland and Oregon in them, greatly increasing your chances of receiving relevant results.